All right, so denial of service attacks, we're going to take a brief overview, just look at what this is and how AWS is here to protect you from these. So go ahead and watch this video. When you're ready, we'll go ahead and continue. All right, so what is a DOS attack or a denial of service attack? So it's basically an attack that's trying to bring your website down. It's going to prevent the normal operation of a server, service, or network by overwhelming it with traffic or malicious requests. So of course, the AWS cloud, right, has this giant infrastructure so that if you do get a lot of traffic coming into your website, it's going to be able to handle it in most cases. Now, these DOS attacks, though, are designed to overwhelm it by such a volume and capacity of incoming requests that it doesn't matter if you have like 1, 2, 3, or 10 instances, right? It's entirely in the realm of possibility that these attacks can bring them down. It's all about bringing a whole network of computers. We're actually, that's going to be in distributed denial of service, so I'll save that for the next attack. But basically, yeah, they're trying to overwhelm your particular website or app with just a bunch of requests. And unfortunately, that's enough to bring down the service. So yeah, it could be your e-commerce website. It could be your school website, your organization's landing page, your app, right, that supports operators in your business or organization. Whatever kind of service you're running on the cloud, DOS is definitely an attack that these services can be vulnerable to. But of course, right, we're going to discuss how AWS protects itself. So impacts of DOS attacks include service outages, downtime for users, loss of revenue for online businesses, reputation damage, loss of customer trust, pretty much anything that comes with your website going down, right, when people expect it to be up and running. And I should say website or any service, really. So let's return to our coffee shop example where customers can call ahead to place their orders. So this will kind of put into context how DOS attacks work. So after answering each call, cashier takes the order and gives it to the barista. However, suppose that a prankster is calling in multiple times to place orders, but is never picking up their drinks. So this is exactly the same as a DOS attack. So it's a malicious request. It's an ingenuous request, right? They don't actually want to access your website, resources, or application. They're really there just to overwhelm it. Same with a prank call, right? If you're making a prank order, you're wasting the restaurant's time, you're wasting their resources. It's the same for the cloud. So this causes the cashier to be unavailable to take other customers' calls. The coffee shop can attempt to stop the false requests by blocking the phone number that the prankster is using. So in this example, the prankster's actions are similar to a denial of service attack. So for example, in an actual DOS attack, an attacker might flood a website or application with excessive network traffic until the targeted website or application becomes overloaded and is no longer able to respond. If the website or application becomes unavailable, this denies service to users who are trying to make legitimate requests. So it's a single source for a regular DOS attack. A really sophisticated DOS attack will actually come from many sources, because these DOS attacks are a little bit easier to protect yourself against, because you can see, oh, it's coming from the same IP address, and the same IP address is making like 10,000 requests right to my website. Then easily you can spot it out, right, and identify it and make the block. But if you have a distributed denial of service, this is a lot harder to deal with. So distributed denial of service is when multiple compromised systems are used to send massive amounts of traffic to a target. So now we're not dealing with a single client, we're dealing with a whole network of clients. So they somehow get their hands, control many computers, servers, whatever the client is, right? So essentially they're using now multiple sources instead of a single one. So DOS, single source, distributed DOS is going to be multiple sources. We usually call this DDoS attacks. So multiple sources are used to start an attack that aims to make a website or application unavailable. It can be from a group of attackers, or it could even be one attacker that infects multiple computers. So they set them up as bots, essentially, to send excessive traffic to a website or application. Again, bringing this back to the example of the coffee shop, this would be just like the previous prank of calling the coffee shop, but instead of just being one prankster, he enlists some of his friends, right, to also make calls. So this is going to be trickier for the coffee shop to block, because if they're coming from all these different numbers, it's hard for the coffee shop to tell what's a legitimate call, right? Who's a real customer and who's one of these pranksters. So yeah, it'll make it difficult for actual legitimate customers to get their calls through. So this is similar to a DDoS attack, right? Of instead of the coffee shop, we're talking about an application, a website, some kind of service on the cloud. Instead of pranksters, right, it'd be bots or some kind of hacker. So DDoS attacks, it's going to use bots, multiple sources to hit your target website and essentially try to bring it down. So yeah, it's definitely harder to block than a traditional DOS attack. Well, AWS does have some resources, some services to help protect you against these attacks, and that's AWS Shield. AWS Shield is a managed DDoS protection service that safeguards AWS applications and resources from attacks. So there's two levels of protection. There's going to be one that's free, and if you want to pay for extra protection, you can definitely go for the advanced. So standard protection automatically comes with all your AWS services. It comes at no extra cost. It protects your AWS sources from the most common, frequently occurring types of DDoS attacks. So as network traffic comes into your apps, AWS Shield Standard uses a bunch of different tricks and techniques to see if the traffic is actually legitimate or is it malicious, right? And if they do identify it as malicious, then they're going to take it down and limit those requests so that your website doesn't experience any downtime. Now, let's say we're dealing with the advanced. So let's say you want some extra protection. So let me fix that. Advanced. So yeah, if you want some extra tools, some extra premium services, you can definitely go with AWS Shield Advanced. So what comes with this extra service? So it's more sophisticated and it can handle larger scale attacks. So it includes real-time attack visibility and 24 access to AWS DDoS experts. So they have an entire team ready to assist you, ready to mitigate a response, right, in the case of an attack. So it does not automatically protect. So let me fix that. Sorry about that. So it protects AWS customers at an extra cost. This AWS Shield can also be integrated with AWS WAF or Web Application Firewall. We'll discuss that additional service in the next section. So you can write custom rules to mitigate really complex DDoS attacks. So yeah, if you have a really big website, maybe you're a Facebook, maybe you're an Amazon, right, where you're dealing with millions and millions of customers, definitely throwing in extra money, right, for the advanced protection might be worth it, right? Because if you experience downtime in those services, we're talking about millions of dollars in losses. That's transactions that weren't made. That's people who weren't able to post, right, for their jobs and businesses. Like it could be catastrophic for a website that deals with that much traffic. So definitely AWS Shield Advanced. You're looking for larger websites that experience more traffic, and that might be a bigger target for these large scale attacks. All right, so additional services. Let's go ahead and discuss that in this final section.